Ahmed, you scare me. Why aren't you coming to bed? Lena entered the bridal suite, but her husband was sitting in the armchair. Tense, who is Luna Desire? The name struck Lena like a punch to the stomach. Ahmed was holding documents in his hand. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me. Not now. He threw photos on the table. 2 years of your life that you completely erased. Lena approached, discovering images she thought she had buried forever. Ahmed, please, let me explain. You don't understand? I understand perfectly. I married a liar. No one could have imagined what would happen that wedding night in Dubai. Leah Martin had always dreamed of a fairy tale wedding. At 29, this young woman from Lyon had finally found the perfect man, Ahmed Al-Rashid, a 35-year-old entrepreneur she had met at a business conference in Paris. Ahmed was everything she had ever desired, sophisticated, prosperous, and completely in love with her. He treated me like a princess from the first day, Leah told her friends. Overseas trips, dinners at the best restaurants, luxurious gifts. No one had ever made me feel so special. Ahmed, owner of a luxury goods import business based in Dubai, seemed straight out of a novel. He spoke 4 languages fluently, had studied at the London School of Economics, and possessed considerable wealth built through international business. The proposal happened after only 8 months of dating. During a trip to St. Tropez, Ahmed organized an elaborate proposal at sunset with rose petals and a 5-carat diamond ring. She cried for a full hour, recalled her best friend, Sophie Dubois. She said she had finally found her soulmate. The wedding preparations spanned 10 months. Ahmed insisted on a luxurious ceremony in Dubai at a 5-star resort overlooking the Persian Gulf. I want the whole world to know you are mine, he told her, kissing her tenderly. The guest list included 200 people, Leah's family and friends from France and Ahmed's important business contacts from across the Middle East. Leah invested all her resources into this dream wedding. She sold her apartment in Lyon's 7th arrondissement, liquidated her savings, and even took out a loan to fund her custom-made wedding dress created by a Parisian designer. Ahmed said it was important to make a good impression, she explained, to justify her exorbitant spending. He wanted me to feel like a queen. The last weeks before the wedding were intense. Leah moved temporarily to Dubai to finalize details and get to know the city that would become her new home. Ahmed showed her the penthouse he had bought for them. A luxury apartment with 3 bedrooms, private terraces, and panoramic city views. Here, we will build our family, he promised her, showing her the room that would be for their future baby. The wedding day, March 15, 2023, seemed perfect. Leah was radiant in her princess dress, adorned with over 1,000 hand-embroidered pearls. The ceremony was officiated by an international celebrant combining French and Arab traditions. Ahmed couldn't stop smiling, tenderly holding his fiancée's hands as they exchanged vows. I promise to love and protect you forever, Ahmed declared in his speech, moving all the guests. You brought light into my life and made me a better man. Leah, with tears in her eyes, replied, today begins our story for eternity. I am yours forever. The party lasted until the early morning hours. Guests danced, celebrated, and toasted the happy couple. Professional photographers captured every magical moment, the first kiss as husband and wife, the special dance, cutting the 3-tiered cake decorated with imported orchids. Everyone commented they had never seen such a happy bride. Around midnight, the newlyweds retired to the hotel's presidential suite, specially decorated for their honeymoon. Red rose petals covered the king-sized bed. A bottle of Dom Perignon champagne awaited them on ice, and the marble bathtub was prepared with aromatic oils and scented candles. Finally alone, my wife, murmured Ahmed, carrying Leah in his arms through the doorway following romantic tradition. She laughed, completely surrendering to the magical moment. Nothing could ruin the perfection of this night. Or so she thought. What Leah didn't know was that in a few hours, her wedding night would turn into her worst nightmare, and the man she had just married hid secrets far darker than she could have ever imagined. Ahmed Al-Rashid had always been a meticulous man. His business success stemmed from this very trait. He thoroughly investigated every business partner, every investment, every detail before making an important decision. With Leah, however, he had let himself be swept away by passion, which was completely contrary to his habits. During the wedding preparation months, a doubt began to nag him. Leah was very secretive about her past, changing the subject whenever he asked more specific questions about her life before they met. "The important thing is our future together," she would say, he later recalled. "I respected that, but I also felt something was being left unsaid." 3 weeks before the wedding, Ahmed made a decision that would change everything. He hired Pierre Weber, a French private detective specializing in background checks, to conduct a discreet investigation into his fiancée's life. It wasn't distrust, he later justified. It was just to make sure there was nothing that could harm us in the future. Pierre Weber was known for his efficiency and discretion. In 15 years of career, he had uncovered secrets that destroyed marriages, toppled executives, and revealed million-euro frauds. For him, investigating Martin would be routine work, at least, he initially thought. The investigation began simply. Weber checked public records, educational history, previous jobs, and personal references. Everything seemed normal. Leah had studied business at University Lyon 1, worked at a few marketing companies, and maintained a seemingly ordinary social circle for an upper-middle-class young French woman. But digging deeper, Weber found the first inconsistencies. Between 2018 and 2020, there was a 2-year period in Leah's life that seemed erased from official records. No formal employment, no registered fixed address, no documented academic activity. It was as if she simply disappeared for 2 years, Weber reported in his preliminary report. Intrigued, the investigator decided to go further. Through contacts in the French entertainment industry, he discovered that Leah had worked under the stage name Luna Desire between 2018 and 2020. Not in conventional films, but in high-end adult productions for a select audience willing to pay premium prices for exclusive content. The discoveries became even more shocking when Weber found records indicating Leah had been one of the highest-paid actresses in her category in France during that period. She wasn't just an occasional participant, she was an established professional with a luxury apartment in Paris's 16th arrondissement financed by her earnings and a loyal clientele paying exorbitant sums for private sessions. Weber also discovered that Leah had been romantically involved with Mark Richer, one of Europe's biggest producers in the sector. The relationship lasted over a year and ended tumultuously when Mark was arrested for tax evasion and money laundering. It was after this arrest that Leah decided to completely leave the industry and reinvent her life. The investigator found evidence that Leah used her earnings to take etiquette classes, language lessons, and personal development programs. She had literally transformed from Luna Desire into Leah Martin, methodically erasing every trace of her former life and building a new identity as a respectable marketing executive. She was extremely clever, Weber admitted later. She changed cities, rebuilt her contact network, even subtly altered her appearance. "If I hadn't been an experienced investigator, I would never have discovered it." The full report included old photographs, employment contracts, financial records, and even testimonies from former colleagues. Weber handed the complete file to Ahmed days before the wedding. The entrepreneur was shocked to discover the woman he loved had completely hidden her past. It wasn't just the work in the adult industry that disturbed him, but the systematic lying, the construction of a false identity, and having been deceived for months. Ahmed spent a sleepless night wrestling with the decision to confront Leah or cancel the wedding. His pride as a traditional Arab man was wounded, but his love for her was still real. He decided to wait until after the ceremony to have a frank conversation with his wife. "Perhaps we can overcome this together," he thought, trying to convince himself. Throughout the ceremony, Ahmed smiled and played the part of the happy groom, but inside, a mix of anger, betrayal, and confusion boiled. Every vow of eternal love Leah uttered sounded like an additional lie. When she promised honesty forever, he could barely contain the bitter irony of the situation. The decision to confront her on the wedding night wasn't planned. Ahmed had thought of waiting a few days, maybe a week, to address the subject calmly. But when they found themselves alone in the suite, looking into the eyes of the woman who had elaborately lied, he simply couldn't pretend nothing had happened. The presidential suite of Atlantis, Dubai was perfect for a fairy tale wedding night. Chilled champagne, rose petals, soft lighting, and a stunning view of the illuminated city. Leah headed to the bathroom to change, putting on white silk lingerie specially chosen for the occasion. When she returned, she found Ahmed sitting in the armchair, fully dressed, with an expression she had never seen before. "Ah. Is everything all right, my love?" asked Leah, approaching with a seductive smile. "I thought you'd be waiting for me in bed already." She noticed he was holding some papers in his hands but couldn't identify what they were in the room's romantic dimness. Ahmed stood up slowly, the documents trembling in his hands. "We need to talk, Leah, or should I call you Luna?" The question fell like a bomb in the silence of the room. Leah felt the blood drain from her face. Her legs wobbled, and she had to lean against the wall to keep from falling. I don't know what you're talking about," she stammered, but she already knew she had been discovered. Ahmed's expression was a mix of deep disappointment and contained anger. He threw the photos and documents on the coffee table, spreading irrefutable evidence of her past life. "Luna Desire, isn't it?" Ahmed pronounced the stage name with disdain. 2 years working in the French porn industry, relationship with Mark Richter the criminal, luxury apartment in Paris financed by, let's say, unconventional methods. His voice was controlled, but Leah could feel fury growing behind the carefully chosen words. Leah approached, trying to touch Ahmed's face, but he jerked back. "Ahmed. Please, let me explain. That was before I knew you. I was a different person. I was going through a difficult time in my life. When I met you, everything changed. You saved me from that life." "I saved you?" Ahmed said bitterly. "You deceived me for over a year. You built a completely false identity. You married me based on lies." He began pacing the room, hands in his hair, visibly agitated. "Do you know what this means for me? For my family? For my business?" Ahmed came from a traditional Emirati family. His father, Sheikh Hassan al-Rashid, was an influential man in Dubai's government and business circles. Family reputation was sacred, built over generations through honest business and respectable marriages. Discovering his son had married a former porn actress would be a devastating scandal. "Ahmed, I love you. That's all that matters." Leah knelt before him, tears streaming down her face. "I completely changed my life for you. I gave up everything. I transformed into the woman you deserve. The past doesn't matter anymore." "Doesn't matter?" Ahmed looked at her incredulously. "You lied about everything. Your profession, your life, your virginity. You married me knowing I came from a conservative family, knowing how this would destroy me." His voice began to rise, control evaporating. Leah tried to explain, recounting the financial problems that had led to that life, how she had repented and decided to change. "I was an orphan, Ahmed. I had no family, no money. I did what I had to survive. But when I met you, I knew I could become a better person." Ahmed wasn't listening. In his mind, he was calculating the damage this scandal would cause. His Arab associates were extremely conservative. Losing their trust would mean ruin for his business. His family would disown him. His reputation would be destroyed forever. "You destroyed me," he said, his voice now dangerously low. "You destroyed my life, my family, everything I worked for." Ahmed headed to the sweets bar and poured himself a double whiskey, trying to calm his nerves. "We can fix this," Leah stood up, desperate. "We can move to another country, start a new life. No one needs to know. The films are old. They're buried in the past." She tried to kiss him again, but Ahmed violently pushed her away, making her stumble and fall onto the couch. "Don't you understand?" he shouted. "It's already too late. My investigator knows, which means others might know too. In a few weeks, all of Dubai will be talking." Ahmed threw his glass against the wall, shattering it into 1,000 pieces. The sound of breaking glass frightened Leah, who finally realized the gravity of the situation. Ahmed wasn't just upset, he was completely out of control. She tried to get up to leave the room, but he blocked her path. "Where do you think you're going?" Ahmed grabbed her arm forcefully. We just got married. You're my wife now, my property. These words were charged with a toxic possessiveness Leah had never perceived before. Ahmed, you're hurting me, she whispered, trying to free her arm. Please, let's talk tomorrow when we're calmer. We can solve this together as a couple. But Ahmed had crossed a mental line from which there was no return. In his perception, distorted by anger and wounded pride, Leah had become the symbol of his humiliation. The woman he loved had transformed into the source of his destruction. What happened in the following minutes in Suite 1847 of Atlantis, Dubai would later be reconstructed through forensic evidence, security recordings from the hallways, and hotel staff testimony. Ahmed al-Rashid had passed a point of no return, dominated by a toxic mix of humiliation, anger, and wounded pride. Leah desperately tried to calm her husband, alternating between pleas and attempts to flee. Ahmed, please, you're not like this. The man I knew is kind, loving. Don't let anger destroy our love. These words, however, seemed only to fuel his fury further. Love? Ahmed laughed bitterly, still holding her arm firmly. What love can exist based on lies? You completely deceived me. You made a fool of me. His voice echoed in the luxurious room, creating a terrible contrast with the romantic surroundings. Leah managed to free herself and ran toward the suite door, but Ahmed was faster. He locked the door and put the key in his pocket, blocking any chance of escape. No one leaves here until we resolve this, he declared, eyes bloodshot and breathing irregular. Ahmed, you scare me. Leah retreated toward the center of the room, her hands visibly trembling. This isn't you. You would never hurt me. Let's sit down and talk like civilized people. She tried to keep her voice calm, but panic was evident. It was then that Ahmed noticed something that enraged him even more. On the table, among the scattered documents, there was a photo of Leah with Mark Richter, the criminal producer. In the image, they appeared embracing at a social event, her wearing a low-cut red dress that Ahmed recognized. It was very similar to the one she had worn on their first date. Even the dress you wore to seduce me was inspired by your other activities, he said, pointing at the photo. Every kiss, every caress, every I love you, it was all a lie. You just transferred your professional seduction techniques onto me. That's not true. Leah shouted, finally losing her composure. I truly love you. I changed my whole life for you. I gave up everything, cut all ties with my past. You're all I have now. Tears flowed abundantly down her face, smearing her bridal makeup. Ahmed approached her slowly, like a predator circling its prey. Do you know what's the worst part of all this, Leah? It's not even what you did. It's the fact that you made me feel special, made me believe I was different, that I had won over a pure and perfect woman. You destroyed my self-esteem along with my reputation. Leah tried once more to touch his face, a gesture that had always calmed him before. Ahmed, you are special. You're the only man I've ever truly loved. With you, I discovered what real love is, not just physical attraction or financial interest. Please, don't destroy this. For a moment, Ahmed seemed to hesitate. Her touch still awakened deep feelings, memories of happy moments they had shared. But then his eyes fell back on the evidence scattered on the table, and the anger returned with full force. Liar, he murmured, pushing her hand away. Even now, even after being discovered, you keep lying. How many men have you said that to before? How many fell for your sweet, manipulative words? Ahmed returned to the bar, this time taking the whiskey bottle directly. He drank several gulps in a row, the alcohol intensifying his emotional instability even more. Leah realized the situation was becoming completely uncontrollable and tried a different approach. Okay, she said, her voice trembling but determined. You're right to be angry. I lied, I hid my past. It was wrong of me. But I did it because I love you and was afraid of losing you. Now that you know the truth, we can work together to overcome this. Overcome? Ahmed threw the bottle against the wall, shattering it into dangerous fragments. How can I overcome the humiliation? How can I look my associates in the eye knowing they know? How can I face my family? His voice was hoarse from screaming. Leah backed away, frightened by the growing violence. Shards of glass were scattered on the floor, and Ahmed seemed to have completely lost touch with reality. She realized she needed to get out of that room immediately before something terrible happened. Ahmed, I'm going to call room service. You need medical help, she said, carefully walking toward the phone. You're not well. The alcohol and shock are affecting your judgment. Don't touch that phone. Ahmed stumbled toward her slightly from the alcohol consumed. No one else can know about this tonight. I need to think, to find a solution. His eyes had a wild expression Leah had never seen before. It was at that moment Leah realized her life was in real danger. The man who had sworn to protect her just hours earlier during the wedding ceremony had turned into a mortal threat. She had to escape, but options were limited. They were on the 28th floor, the door was locked, and Ahmed blocked any movement toward the exits. What happened next unfolded in seconds but would forever change the lives of all involved. At 3:47 a.m. on March 16, 2023, Dubai police received a desperate call from the night manager of Atlantis Dubai. There's a woman screaming for help on the 28th floor, reported Omar Hassan, a hotel employee for over 10 years. The screams stopped a few minutes ago, but we heard the sound of objects breaking. Then complete silence. The first police team arrived at the hotel in under 15 minutes. Chief Inspector Khalid Al-Mansouri, a veteran with 20 years of experience in violent crime, led the operation. It was a relatively calm Thursday night, he recalled later, until we got that call that changed everything. Arriving on the 28th floor, police found hotel staff gathered in the hallway, whispering nervously. The suite door was locked from the inside, and there was no response to repeated knocking. The manager provided a master key, but the door was also bolted with an internal security lock. We need to force it, Al-Mansouri decided. If there's a victim inside, every second counts. After 3 attempts, the door gave way, revealing a scene that would shock even the most experienced investigators. Leah Martin lay on the floor of the suite, wearing only her bridal lingerie, with severe injuries to her head and neck. Beside her, blood-stained glass shards indicated the murder weapon, the whiskey bottle Ahmed had broken in his fury. The room was completely destroyed, furniture overturned, documents scattered, rose petals now stained red. Ahmed al-Rashid sat in the armchair, apparently in shock, his hands and clothes covered in blood. He offered no resistance to arrest, only murmuring repeatedly, "She deceived me, she destroyed everything. I had no choice." Paramedics confirmed Leah had been dead for at least an hour. The initial investigation was led by Chief Inspector Amara Singh, a specialist in domestic crimes. It was clearly a case of extreme domestic violence, she explained. But there were unusual elements requiring deeper investigation. Among them were the documents scattered in the room revealing the victim's secret life. Singh discovered Ahmed had hired Pierre Weber, the French private detective, just weeks before the wedding. Weber was interviewed via videoconference and provided details about his investigation into Leah. He seemed like a normal client, Weber said. He just wanted to check his fiancée's past before the wedding. I never imagined it would lead to tragedy. The autopsy performed by Dr. Hassan Al-Zara revealed disturbing details. Leah had suffered multiple head injuries caused by fragments of the shattered whiskey bottle. There were at least 7 blows, reported the forensic doctor. The first might have been impulsive, but the others were deliberate. This indicates an escalation of extreme violence. Hotel security camera footage provided a precise timeline. At 0:15, Ahmed and Leah were seen entering the suite, apparently happy. At 1:30, an employee on the floor below reported loud noises from the 28th floor. At 2:45, female screams were heard for the first time. By 3:30, everything fell silent. During interrogation, Ahmed initially tried to plead self-defense. She attacked me when I confronted her about her lies, he said. I tried to defend myself, and things escalated. However, forensic evidence completely contradicted his version. Crime scene analysis revealed Leah had tried to escape multiple times. There was blood on the bathroom door, indicating she had hidden there at some point. Signs of struggle showed she had tried to disarm Ahmed during the attack. She was clearly a victim trying to save her own life, concluded Singh. The investigation also revealed troubling aspects of Ahmed's personality that had gone unnoticed during the relationship. Interviews with former employees of his company revealed episodes of explosive anger and degrading treatment of female staff. He had a dark side he hid very well, reported a former secretary who preferred not to be identified. Ahmed's lawyer, Mahmoud al-Rashid, a distant cousin, tried to build a defense based on extreme provocation and crime of honor, a concept still recognized in some traditional Arab legal systems. My client was the victim of an elaborate fraud that destroyed his honor and reputation, he argued. The public prosecution, led by Sarah al-Mahmoud, completely rejected this defense line. This is a brutal, premeditated murder, she declared. The accused had multiple opportunities to stop, seek help, resolve the situation civilly. Instead, he chose extreme violence. The investigation also revealed details about the life Leah had built after leaving the adult industry. Sophie Dubois, her best friend, provided evidence that Leah's transformation had been authentic. She had truly changed, Sophie testified. She was sincerely in love with Ahmed and had found peace with herself. Medical records showed Leah had undergone psychological therapy for 2 years to treat trauma from her previous life. She was actively working to heal and build a healthy life, reported Dr. Emma Fisher, her psychologist in Lyon. The murder destroyed not only her life but all the progress she had made. The case attracted international attention, particularly in France, where media highlighted the dangers of toxic masculinity and violence against women. Women's rights organizations used the case to question laws still allowing honor-based defenses in crimes against women. During the investigation, police discovered Ahmed had searched online for how to make it look like an accident and UAE homicide law in the days preceding the crime. This proves premeditation, argued the prosecution. He was already considering violence before the confrontation. The trial of Ahmed al-Rashid began in September 2023, 6 months after Leah Martin's death. Dubai's Superior Court was packed with international journalists, women's rights activists, and members of both families devastated by the tragedy. The case had become a symbol of the fight against domestic violence in the Middle East. Judge Fatima al-Zahra, known for her progressive stances in cases of violence against women, presided. This case will be judged solely on evidence and law, she stated at the opening. I will not allow outdated traditions or concepts of honor to influence the pursuit of justice. The prosecution presented a damning case against Ahmed. Sarah al-Mahmoud showed jurors crime scene photos, detailed forensic reports, and security camera recordings. This is not a crime of passion, she argued. It was a brutal murder committed by a man who believed he had the right to take his wife's life for discovering her past. The most impactful testimony came from Pierre Weber, the private detective. Appearing via videoconference from Paris, he described how Ahmed reacted upon receiving the report on Leah. He was visibly disturbed, Weber reported. He specifically asked how to handle the situation definitively. At the time, I thought he meant divorce. Now, I realize it could have been something far more sinister. The defense tried to present Ahmed as a victim of elaborate manipulation. Mahmoud al-Rashid presented evidence of Leah's past in the adult industry, attempting to justify his client's extreme reaction. My client was the victim of a fraud that destroyed his life, family, and reputation, he argued. Any man in his position would have reacted with extreme emotion. Sophie Dubois traveled from Lyon to testify in defense of her best friend's memory. Through tears, she described Leah's authentic transformation after leaving the adult industry. She wasn't the same person anymore, Sophie said. She had found peace, self-love, and a future. Ahmed destroyed not only her life but all the efforts she had made to rebuild herself. The most shocking testimony came from Ahmed's own family. His father, Sheikh Hassan al-Rashid, publicly disowned his son during the trial. What my son did has no justification in our culture or religion, he declared. Islam teaches respect and protection of women, not violence. Ahmed dishonored not only our family but our most sacred values. Dr. Layla Hassan, a forensic psychologist specializing in domestic violence, testified about Ahmed's behavioral patterns. The defendant demonstrates classic characteristics of a narcissistic abuser, she explained. The discovery of Leah's past was merely the trigger for violence that already existed latently in his personality. During his own testimony, Ahmed tried to show remorse, but his words revealed a deeply problematic mindset. "I loved Leah," he said, crying, "but she betrayed me in the worst possible way. How can I forgive someone who destroyed my life with lies?" Even while expressing regret, he continued to blame the victim for his own crime. The psychiatric evaluation conducted by Dr. Omar Al-Mansouri concluded Ahmed was fully capable of distinguishing right from wrong at the time of the crime. The defendant suffers from no mental illness that would justify his actions, reported the psychiatrist. These actions were the result of anger, toxic masculinity, and a sense of ownership over his wife. Technological evidence presented by the prosecution included WhatsApp messages Ahmed had sent to friends in the days before the wedding, expressing concerns about Leah. One particularly troubling message said, "If I discover she deceived me about something important, I don't know how I'll react." The trial's most tense moment came during the presentation of audio recordings from the crime night. The hotel's security system had captured fragments of arguments and screams from the suite. Hearing Leah's voice begging for her life and Ahmed's escalating threats left the entire courtroom in absolute silence. Mark Richter, Leah's ex-producer and ex-boyfriend, testified via videoconference from a French prison where he was serving a sentence for financial crimes. "Leah was a good person who found herself in difficult circumstances," he said. "When she decided to leave the industry, I completely supported her decision. She deserved a second chance at life, not death." Leah's family, represented by her uncles from Provence, gave moving testimony about the young woman they had lost. "Leah was an orphan, but she had found a family in us," said her uncle Henry Martin. "When she told us about Ahmed, we saw a light in her eyes for the first time in years. He stole not only her life but our hope of seeing her happy." Final arguments lasted 2 full days. The prosecution sought the death penalty, allowed in the UAE for cases of premeditated murder. "This crime was planned, executed with extreme cruelty, and represents a threat to the safety of all women," argued Sarah Al-Mahmoud. Ahmed Al-Rashid must face the maximum penalty for the life he took. The defense pleaded for clemency, requesting life imprisonment instead of the death penalty. "My client made a terrible mistake in a moment of extreme emotional disturbance," said Mahmoud Al-Rashid. "But he is still a human being who deserves a chance at redemption." After 4 hours of deliberation, the jury returned with the verdict, guilty of first-degree murder with aggravating circumstances of premeditation and extreme cruelty. Judge Fatima Al-Zahra sentenced Ahmed to life imprisonment without parole, refusing to apply the death penalty due to minimal mitigating circumstances. The accused, Ahmed Al-Rashid, took the life of a young woman trying to rebuild her existence, the judge stated during sentencing. "These actions not only destroyed a precious life but also sent a terrible message that men can punish women for their past. This court categorically rejects that mentality." The case set important precedents in the UAE's judicial system, particularly regarding the rejection of honor-based or extreme provocation defenses in cases of violence against women. International human rights organizations hailed the decision as an important step in protecting women in the region. Leah Martin was buried in Lyon in a ceremony attended by hundreds, including many who didn't know her personally but were moved by her story. A foundation was established in her name to help women wishing to leave the adult industry and rebuild their lives. Ahmed Al-Rashid serves his sentence in Dubai Central Prison, where he will spend the rest of his life reflecting on the consequences of his actions. He will never be eligible for release, forever bearing the weight of having destroyed not only Leah's life but his own on a night that should have been the happiest of their existence. The tragedy of Leah and Ahmed serves as a dark reminder that love can turn into deadly hatred when fueled by